Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and I am at week 12 of my 100 book challenge, where I have challenged myself to read 100 books that I already own before buying another book. My goal is to finish this challenge before or at week 20, and I am at book 60, getting ready to finish book 61 when I get back from my morning walk. So all is looking good. I have finished my 61st book, Helsinki Homicide, Cold Trail, by Jarkko Sipila. He is a Finnish crime writer. This was originally published in the aughts in Finnish and translated into English. It starts off with a man convicted to a life sentence for murder in Finland. His father has just died, and they have released him to go to the funeral under escort. However, the man escapes his escort. It seems to me that the Finnish crime system is a little more lax than the one in the United States. I don't think that could have happened in the United States, but maybe. So now the police must find this murderer. However, as the police start looking into the investigation, they discover some anomalies. The man has been in prison for 8 years, and the conviction is rather odd. They really find it odd that he was convicted for life. It seems that the type of murder that he did would normally only be manslaughter, even though he sliced his wife's throat open with a knife. And then comes the problem that he may not actually be the murderer, because for a long time, he was claiming that he was innocent. So what is going on? The murderer is out for revenge. Maybe. So as a police procedural, it's kind of lax. Maybe not lax, it's not the right word. It's just distant. There are no real strong characters in this book. Like when you read a police procedural by Ed McBain, you get a very strong feeling of character. Even though this is, I think, the first in the series, not 100% positive, I don't get a sense of characters. I just get a sense of people doing police work. And that's about all. There is a side plot of one of the policeman's sons who was involved in a hit and run when he's riding a bicycle. The injury to the son is not very serious. And the police are saying, well, you know, we'll get around to investigating that hit and run. Of course, the father wants things to move along a little more speedily. Do I recommend this book? You know, it's not a great book. I finished reading it. I was happy. Would I read any more in the series? Probably not. If I wanted a police procedural, I'll probably go back to Ed McBain. Although the Finnish setting was a nice change of pace for me. So maybe for that reason alone, give the series another shot. I would say this is definitely a mixed book. You might like it, you might not. I have DNF'd my 62nd book, A Tiger for Malgudi by R.K. Narayan. He is a South Indian author writing in English. This book was originally published in 1982. I had picked it out from my project about reading about Hinduism in fiction. I got about 30-40 pages in. This is sort of the memoir of an old tiger in the zoo, recounting his life in India, starting as his wild tigerness with his tiger family, and his tiger family got captured by hunters and killed. And then he was captured himself, but lived. I just did not get into this book. It's one of those cases where you're reading it and you tell yourself, do I want to continue? And I said, no, I'm just not really enjoying this. The writing is fine. The descriptions are fine. It just did not captivate me at the time. So I DNF'd it. I have finished my 63rd book, The Dreaming Jewels by Theodore Sturgeon, originally published in 1950. This is a very unusual science fiction novel. For whatever reason, when I first bought it or picked it up, I thought it was going to be a horror novel, even though if you look on the side cover, it does say SF, and this does fit more the SF category than the horror category. Well, anyway, I'm going to read you the first paragraph. The first paragraph just is a lot of fun, in my opinion. They caught the kid doing something disgusting out under the bleachers at the high school stadium, and he was sent home from the grammar school across the street. He was 8 years old then. He'd been doing it for years. So what was the 8-year-old boy doing that was so disgusting for years? Well, there's one thing that comes to mind, even though he's just 8. And get those naughty thoughts out of your mind. This is 1950. Although maybe he was sort of poking that little that nudge. He's poking you to think he's doing the really nasty thing. But it's not that. I won't tell you the nasty thing that he's doing, even though I did reveal it in a live show with a Market Book Time with Elvis and Jim at Mystery Mayhem. And everyone in the chat said, that's really not all that disgusting. Some of them may have been doing that disgusting thing themselves when they were 8 years old. Well, anyway, this book is kind of a mess. It starts off with the 8-year-old boy. He's a orphan living with a brutal family. And the stepfather is so disgusted with what this boy has done, he throws him into a closet and slams the closet door shut on 3 of his fingers, which get crushed. And the boy escapes that night, running away from his stepfather with Junkie. Junkie is seen on the cover right there. There is a toy that he's been holding since he was found. He was a foundling. And it's a Jack-in-the-Box with very strange eyes. And the father had just stepped on Junkie's head and broke a lot of it. And the boy ran off to a carny. And from there, he gets sort of taken in by a female dwarf. And then he just stops growing, so he can do an act with the female dwarf. That's the basic premise. As I said, this book is kind of a mess. The storyline just veers all over the place. It doesn't cohere. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Elements of the story just pop in that are very strange, that sort of fit the science fiction mold, sort of fit the fantasy mold, and just don't cohere into a story. There are some nice scenes with some carny. There's some carny folk, but not enough of the carny folk. It's much more interesting if he'd focused a lot on the carny, because about halfway through he runs away from the carny again. As I said, I was just highly disappointed with this book. Theodore Sturgeon is, of course, a very famous and very great science fiction author, but I don't think this is one of his best books. It's not quite a pan, but I would say this is a mixed minus review. If you see this edition, it's just a beautiful edition paperback, and that alone, it's worth having. But I kind of wish I had kept it on my shelf thinking, that's a great paperback. I bet it's a great book, because that anticipation was much better than the actual results of reading this. I have finished my 64th book, the Bhagavad Gita, translated by Ekath Easwaran. This is, of course, the famous Hindu scripture, written anywhere between 5th century BCE and the 2nd century BCE. Scholars don't quite agree when. Well, anyway, this is essentially a poem, a story. The Bhagavad Gita, translated as roughly the Song of God. It is the story of Arjuna, who is a warrior in a family, and he is getting ready to go to battle against another side of his family. And he has doubts. He wonders, why should I fight my family? What are the purposes? And then sort of time stands still, and he comes across Krishna, or should I say, Krishna makes himself known to Arjuna. And Krishna is an avatar of Vishnu, the main god in Hinduism. And Krishna is there to teach him why it is important that he go into battle. And that is essentially the story, the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. And there's a lot of things to learn. There are types of yoga. For example, we're discussing with Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics over on our Voxer group. And he sort of Voxered me and says, hey, what's your favorite type of yoga? Pulling it out of the Gita. And my response was, I don't have a favorite type of yoga. I'm not reading this to become a Hindu. I'm reading this to learn what the Hindus thought and what they continue to think. And so this is my exploration into religion that I'm doing for myself. I have done Buddhism. I'm in the middle of Hinduism, and then go on to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And Hinduism is fascinating. Their concept of the universe and gods is very unlike the traditional Abrahamic views of God, where you have the patriarch overlooking humanity. This one is a lot more nuanced. And you really need to explore this for yourself as a reader. There's right ways to read this book and wrong ways. The right way is to probably read it and take a whole hell of a lot of notes going on about what Krishna is telling Arjuna and the different ways to live, the different types of yoga. I didn't read it that way. I just read it straight through because I want a high level understanding of Hinduism. I don't want to get down into the weeds, and writing notes to me would be getting down into the weeds. But this is a fabulous book. I think a lot of people should pick it up and read it. You can read it just on the surface level and gain some knowledge and beauty because it's a fascinating book to read. This is the translation that I picked up, the Ekath Easwaran. I did try a public domain version as well, and the public domain version from Project Gutenberg is a little rough for me. There may be other good translations out there, and you'll have to go seek them out for yourself. And I would give this a rave review, maybe a rave minus, because I'm not really going to become a Hindu after this. I have finished my 65th book, The Sign of the Four by Arthur Conan Doyle, originally published in 1890. It is the second of the Sherlock Holmes novels. And I think it finishes overall third in my ranking of favorites. The first two are kind of a tie, A Study in Scarlet and The Hound of the Baskervilles. You can have an argument over which one of those two is better. I think they're both different, but roughly equal. Then comes The Sign of the Four, and is trailed by The Valley of Fear for the Holmes novels. And this one is being read for a group event. Holmes is Where the Heart Is, for the week 1 in February. Now, obviously, it is not February yet, but there will be a live show where I and two other gentlemen, I think, will be discussing The Sign of the Four in a live show. I think it's going to be held on Mark's channel, Book Time with Elvis, but that may change. That has not been ultimately decided. But I wanted to make sure that I had this book read by the beginning of February. So yes, I read it a little bit early. And you can catch our opinions about this book on the live show. For this wrap up, I'm going to say that it still counts as an excellent novel. I'm going to give it a rave minus, because it just does not quite match up to the best of the Sherlock Holmes novels. But really, anyone who's into Sherlock Holmes is going to enjoy this. Because it starts off with a great mystery of a beautiful young woman approaching Sherlock Holmes with a problem that he wants her to solve. And that ultimately leads to a chase scene with a cannibal. You can't go wrong with that. I still, highly recommend it. And that is a wrap for week 12. I'm right on schedule to finish in my 20 weeks. Onward to week 13.